Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a home for nearly 4 decades, every wall painted with love, every corner telling a story. Now imagine some entitled rich kid walks in and says, "This is mine now. Get out." Well, in this story, they thought they were moving into a fairy tale dream home. Instead, they walked into a cold, lifeless shell. And oh boy, the karma was delicious. If you've ever had someone try to take advantage of you just because they thought they had more power, you're going to love this one. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because this revenge story is one of the most emotionally satisfying you'll hear all week. Here's the flow and expansion. I'll draft the first few minutes fully written, then outline the middle pacing, then deliver a full, fleshed-out version for 10 to 20-minute runtime in the final draft. Paint Rebecca, the art teacher, as a warm, relatable soul. Disney murals, community presence, decades in her home. Contrast her kindness with the cruelty of the landlord's kids. Build emotional investment. Asterisk, Rebecca wasn't just my neighbor. She was the heart of our little street. While most houses in the area looked pretty much the same, hers was different. From the outside, you'd think it was just another modest cottage, maybe even a little plain. But the inside, it was like stepping into another world. The walls were alive with hand-painted murals. Disney princesses danced across the living room walls. Fairy tale castles stretched toward painted skies. Forest animals peeked out from corners, and every room felt like you were walking into a storybook. She had painted it all herself back when she was younger, back when she taught art. Later, when she opened her own paint and wine studio, she became known as the woman who could make anyone feel like an artist. She wasn't just talented, she was kind. Even when I was a bit of a jerk to her once, complaining about her calling me out for speeding, she didn't hold it against me. We made peace, and over the years, she became one of those rare neighbors who felt more like family. But that all changed when her landlord passed away, and his greedy kids swooped in. Asterisk, describe how the son and his daughter coveted the house. Build tension around lack of lease injustice. Make audience furious. Asterisk, see, Rebecca had lived there since the mid-'80s, nearly 40 years in the same home. She'd even been promised by the landlord himself that one day the home would be hers. But life is cruel sometimes. He passed before making it official. And his kids? They didn't care about promises. They didn't care about her art. They didn't care that this wasn't just a house. It was her life. One son came by with his daughter. She saw the murals, the fairy tale walls, and fell in love. To her, it was just a cool art house. To Rebecca, it was her soul. But instead of respecting that, they used it against her. They said the murals were a problem, that she had no lease, that she had to go. Imagine being told you're being erased from your own life's canvas because someone else wanted your masterpiece. Asterisk, Rebecca finds a new property last minute. Community rallies to help her. Emotional weight shifts. Introduce Rebecca's standard and a revenge plan. Asterisk, she was devastated, of course. Who wouldn't be? But she's strong. And somehow, by pure luck or fate, she found a new place, out of state, with its own art studio. It wasn't easy, but she made it work. And here's where things get interesting. She could have left that old house with her murals still there, her magic still alive, but instead, she agreed to something else. A final goodbye that would also be a perfect revenge. Asterisk, detail step by step how everything was painted over, stripped, and turned into lifeless Rebecca's standard. Describe sights, smells, sounds of sanding, spraying, killing the character of the home. Let audience feel the slow murder of the fairy tale house. Asterisk, we cleared her furniture, packed her memories into storage. She stayed at a friend's guest house, painting a beautiful mural as thanks. Meanwhile, her friends got to work. First came the Sanders, buzzing, growling, chewing away at decades of art. The vibrant colors disappeared into blotches, the laughter of painted characters smothered into dust. Then came the sprayer. Rebecca's friend, almost with a wicked grin, loaded it up. White primer, for passes across each wall, fast, mechanical, merciless. When the paint dried, the house was unrecognizable. Every warm, magical mural had been replaced by soulless grays and whites. The wood paneling? Painted over. Cabinets? Painted over. Even the switch covers, gray. It wasn't a fairy tale anymore. It was a morgue. Asterisk. Entitled daughter expected a magical fairy tale home. Gets soulless gray flipper nightmare. No murals, no magic, just death inside. Asterisk. And then came the day. Moving trucks rolled up. The daughter was ready to move into her dream home. Except when she opened that door, she didn't find Disney princesses. She didn't find fairy tales. She found nothing. Gray walls, gray cabinets, gray everywhere. The soul had been ripped out. From a fairy tale castle to a cookie-cutter prison. And the best part? Nobody even moved in. After that U-Haul, the house just sat there, empty, dead, a monument to greed and to Rebecca's perfect revenge. Asterisk. There's something poetic about it, isn't there? They wanted the magic, but their greed killed it. Rebecca may have lost that house, but she gained freedom, a new art studio, and the last laugh. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's just letting someone choke on the ashes of what they tried to steal. Rebecca was heartbroken. 40 years of her life, gone with a single letter from the landlord's kids. I remember the day she told me she had to leave. Her voice cracked. Her hands trembled as she held on to the chipped wooden banister by her front door. "They're taking it," she whispered. The only place that ever felt like mine. It crushed me to see her that way. This wasn't just a house. This was her life's canvas. A living, breathing storybook she had painted with her own hands. Every brushstroke was a memory. Every mural, a chapter. And now, some spoiled daughter of the landlord's son wanted it for herself. Not because she needed it. Not because she respected it. No, she just wanted it. Like a shiny toy she saw in someone else's hands. But Rebecca wasn't going to leave without dignity. By sheer luck, she found a new property out of state. A beautiful little house with a full art studio on the first floor. It was almost poetic. The universe ripping away one home, but offering her a blank canvas for the next. Still, she wanted to walk away from the old house on her own terms. And that's when our little group of neighbors came together. Her closest friend, a painter with a mischievous streak, made a bold offer. Let's give the house a Rebecca's send-off. He grinned as he pulled out his brand new paint sprayer. I've been dying to test this thing. And trust me, they won't know what hit M. Rebecca laughed for the first time in weeks. Not a bitter laugh. A real one. Fine, she said, but if we're doing this, we're doing it right. The first week, we helped her move out every last piece of furniture. We carried her easels, her brushes, her painted chairs into storage. Even the little stools she used for her wine and paint nights were carefully wrapped. She stayed in her friend's guest house while the rest of us prepared for, well, what I can only call an artistic funeral. The second week, the real work began. I can still hear it. The harsh, growling whine of the electric sanders. They chewed through those murals like machines devouring history. Colors faded to dust. Mickey's smile dissolved into jagged streaks. Ariel's hair became nothing more than an orange blur. Dust hung heavy in the air, coating our clothes, stinging our eyes. Rebecca stood in the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. I thought she might cry, but instead she whispered, "Let it go. They don't deserve it." And so we did. By the end of the week, the storybook walls were gone. What remained looked like battlefield scars, blotches of colors, scratched plaster, empty space where once there had been magic. Then came the paint sprayer. Rebecca's friend loaded it with primer and pulled the trigger. For swift passes per wall. That's all it took. The white paint rolled over the scars, suffocating every last memory. The machine hissed and roared, spitting out a curtain of sterile white. The smell of chemicals filled the air, sharp, artificial, overwhelming. And with each stroke, the house grew colder, deader. Next came the Rebecca standard. That's what we called it, almost as a joke. The kind of soulless flipper style you see in every cheap renovation. White semi-gloss walls, depressing gray trim, dark tone fake wood flooring. Cabinets? Gray. Switch covers? Gray. Even the wooden paneling that once gave the rooms warmth drowned in dull, lifeless paint. It was like watching someone drain the blood from a living creature. When I walked through the finished product, I shivered. The murals were gone. The colors were gone. The house was dead. But Rebecca wasn't done yet. The cottage-style facade on the front, that fake, storybook charm the landlord had once approved, she hated it. She wanted it gone. So another friend, a landscaper, stepped in exchange for some of Rebecca's old bushes. He stripped the facade clean off. He ripped out the decorative plants, tore down the wooden cutouts, and left nothing but gravel, sand, and a single ugly boulder. The house that once looked like a fairy tale cottage now looked like a prison with a parking lot. We stood there that night, sweat dripping, dust clinging to our clothes, staring at the husk we had created. Rebecca smiled. Days later, a moving truck pulled up. The landlord's son and his daughter were ready to claim their dream home. But when they opened the door, no murals, no Disney magic, no fairy tale. The daughter, who had once lit up at the sight of Rebecca's art, walked into a lifeless shell. No laughter, no joy, just a hollow echo of her footsteps on tile floors and soulless walls. The neighbor said the truck left not long after. Nothing was unloaded. No furniture, no boxes, just the silence. The house still sits empty, a gray monument to greed. Rebecca? She's thriving in her new home. Her studio walls are already alive with color again. Castles, forests, characters, a new fairy tale, one that's hers and hers alone. And as for the greedy family, they got exactly what they deserved. They stole her house, but in doing so, they killed the very thing they wanted. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about letting them destroy themselves. The night before we started sanding, Rebecca asked me to walk through the house with her one last time. I'll never forget that moment. The house was quiet, except for the soft creak of the floorboards. Moonlight spilled through the curtains, and the murals seemed to glow in the dark. She touched the painted wall in her hallway, a mural of Snow White and the 7 dwarves marching home. Her fingers lingered on the brushstrokes she'd made 30 years earlier. "I painted this when my daughter went off to college," she said softly. "I was so lonely, and these little guys kept me company. Every room has a story like that." Her voice cracked. She closed her eyes. "They think it's just paint. They'll never understand what this house meant." I wanted to tell her not to worry, that it would all be okay. But the truth? I was angry, furious. My fists clenched just listening to how casually these kids had stomped all over her life's work. That night, I swore to myself, if they wanted her house, fine. They could have it, but they'd get it empty, soulless, lifeless. When the Sanders roared to life the next morning, it was like war. The sound was deafening, a brutal grinding noise that bounced off the walls. Fine dust filled the air, clinging to our skin, our hair, our lungs. We wore masks, but it didn't help much. The murals screamed their last songs as the Sanders stripped them away. I'll never forget the moment Rebecca's friend stopped, wiped sweat from his brow, and said, "It's like erasing a soul." Rebecca just nodded. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set like stone. "Then let's make sure it never falls into the wrong hands." That night, after hours of sanding, we gathered in her empty living room. The walls were scarred, blotchy, raw. Rebecca's friend held up his sprayer. "Tomorrow, the Rebecca standard goes up." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the Flipper Special?" He grinned. "Exactly. White, gray, soulless. Will drain every drop of life from this place." Rebecca chuckled, a bitter laugh. "Funny, for years, people called this house the fairy tale cottage. By the time we're done, it'll be a nightmare in beige." The next morning, the sprayer hissed to life. Imagine a dragon breathing paint instead of fire. That's what it sounded like. A steady, forceful whoosh as thick white primer coated every surface. The smell was sharp, chemicals that stung the back of your throat. We worked in shifts just to keep from getting dizzy. Layer by layer, the colors died. Cinderella's castle vanished into a sea of sterile white. Winnie the Pooh's smile was buried under dull gray. The wood panels that once gave warmth, blotted out like mistakes in a notebook. The sprayer moved fast, for passes per wall. Hiss, 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 hiss. In a single day, decades of love and memory were erased. At one point, I caught Rebecca staring at the freshly painted walls. I thought she was about to break down. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, "Funny, they wanted my magic, but you can't steal magic. Not really. You either create it or you don't. And they'll never create it." That's when I knew this wasn't just revenge. This was justice. When the landscaper arrived, he whistled low. "You sure about this, Rebecca? Once I strip the facade, there's no going back." She smiled calm and cold. "Do it. They wanted my fairy tale? Let's see how they like reality." So he ripped out the shrubs, tore down the wooden frame, ripped off the decorative shutters. The yard that once looked like a storybook cottage now resembled a gravel pit with a random boulder tossed in. "There," he said, wiping his hands. From storybook cottage to cheap rental. Rebecca laughed. Perfect. It was a Saturday when the U-Haul arrived. I was fixing something at another neighbor's place when I saw them. The landlord's son, his daughter, a few relatives. They looked excited, buzzing with anticipation. From a distance, I watched as they unlocked the door. The daughter rushed in first, practically bouncing with joy. And then silence. She froze in the doorway. Seconds ticked by. Then I heard it. Her voice sharp, horrified. "Dad, what happened?" The son stormed in after her, his face confused, then furious. Gone were the murals. Gone was the fairy tale charm. Instead, they stood inside a mausoleum of gray. Sterile walls, gray cabinets, a dead house. They didn't unload a single box. Within an hour, the U-Haul pulled away. The house sat in silence once more. And you know what? It's still empty to this day. As for Rebecca, she thrives in her new home. Her studio walls are alive with color again, forests, castles, oceans, and skies. She didn't just move on. She flourished. Her old house? A grave. Her new one? A rebirth. And the greedy family? They learned the hard way. You can steal a house, but you can't steal its soul. Sometimes revenge doesn't need shouting. Sometimes it's just silence. Letting someone open the door and realize they've destroyed the very thing they craved. And honestly, that's the sweetest revenge of all. Asterisk, so tell me, was this karma or pure genius? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen in real life. If Rebecca's story gave you chills, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Because trust me, the next revenge tale, you won't want to miss it.